Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. How are you today? Ready for new crazy stories? Let's go to the first one, about OP's mother, who demands her new husband walks OP down the aisle instead of her brother. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment. Also, please check out today's new video on my new channel in the description box below. Enjoy! My wedding is later this year, and unfortunately, my dad won't be there. He passed when I was 19, but I always wanted my big brother to walk me down the aisle since my dad can't. My brother has said he'd be honored to do it as he knows what it would mean to me. Enter my mom. Dad died and she grieved, but eventually dated again, which was hard to deal with, but I got over it. She was 46 when Dad died, and I know it hit her hard, but I never wanted her to be alone and spending her life grieving. I was happy on some level that she was trying to find love or companionship again. She met a man in 2017, and they got married just 2 years later in 2019. I thought it was fast, but she seemed happy, so I was happy. I don't know him well enough, though. Between their whirlwind romance and me being away studying, I didn't meet him in person until a few months before the wedding, and he's nice enough. She seems happy, which makes me happy. However, Mom has gone crazy, and I don't know why. She is insisting this guy, who I do not ducking know at all, walk me down the aisle because he's your dad now. I won't go into detail about how pissed I was at that. She says it would mean so much because he holds that role my dad once did, and him walking down the aisle would symbolize his place within our family. My brother has talked to her, my aunties have talked to her on my behalf, and she still will not stop. I'm frustrated. My dad won't be there, but I thought at least Mom will see me get married. It's making me hate her husband, who seems nice enough. I tried reaching out to him, but she has told him you'll walk her down the aisle like her father would and won't budge there. What do I do? I don't want to tell her she can't come because I love her and want her there, but I don't want her making a scene. I don't even know where this is coming from all of a sudden. OP's mother has lost her mind. She needs to get herself together or stay home. Her husband can be OP's friend, but OP doesn't know him. It is lovely that she is happy. He didn't raise OP. Who walks OP down the aisle is an honor that OP selects who is entitled to. The fact that OP and her brother are that close is truly wonderful. OP needs to let her know that she has stepped so far over the line and OP is hurt. She had no business crossing it. She cannot erase OP's father. She needs to decide if she wants to respect OP, apologize, and attend the wedding, or stay home. Okay, some backstory here. My parents divorced while I was still a toddler, and most of my childhood was spent between both parents and my older sister, Trish, and brother Ron. Until I was a teen, my parents were great co-parents, and we were all close with our dad. Then, he met his future wife, Susan. They had only been dating for a few months when they decided to get married. Immediately, things changed. When my siblings visited, she demanded that we call her Mom. She had this deep dislike for Trish. She called her fat, smashed her phone for writing hurtful things about her to her friends. And after checking over her homework, if she saw anything wrong, she would just rip the paper up. When our mom confronted Dad about it, he just made up a stupid excuse about Susan being a strong woman and that Trish could learn from her. After that, Trish stopped visiting and Dad told her to grow up. Ron, meanwhile, went through a rough patch after he graduated college and he broke up with his boyfriend. Since he couldn't afford a place of his own, he moved with Dad for a bit but left after a few weeks. His entire time there was just Susan telling him that his degree was a joke, that he was pathetic for still living off his parents, and would even mock him for flaming if he got excited over something, telling him he was too flamboyant. After he left, he told Dad that he expected an apology and that he did not deserve to be treated like garbage by Susan while his father just watched. He just said that Susan was part of the family now and that he stood by his wife. Ron kindly told him to never speak to him again and went full-blown no contact. With me, I never took any of Susan's BS, and if she would say something to me or make a comment, I'd just ignore her or leave the room. This pisses her off, since I always assumed she lived off the drama she caused when Trish would cry or Ron got mad. Instead, she cried to Dad and told him that I hurt her deeply and that I made her feel unloved in her own home. Dad took her side, and the last time I was at his house involved him screaming at me and calling me an ingrate. We got into a shoving match, and I stormed off and went to a local fast food place until my mom could come get me. After that, the contact we had was pretty much him calling and asking how things were. He didn't even come to my high school graduation or Trish's wedding because him and Susan were saving money. We all came to accept that Dad chose his new wife over us, and while it hurt like hell, we moved on. Finally, just before Thanksgiving, Susan passed away suddenly, and it hit Dad hard. Since she had little family and they had no friends outside each other, he is pretty much alone now. Trish invited him to dinner with her family a couple of times, but he's a stranger to her kids, and her husband hates him because of how he let Susan treat her. Ron was the only blunt one and told Dad that he can't just come back after everything. Right now, I'm just confused, and I don't know what to do. The only contact I have with him is through Trish, and she thinks that Dad is still deeply mourning and that he wants his kids back in his life. Since I don't use social media or use the internet much, dirty hippie stuff, my friend is posting this for me so I can get some outside perspectives. I remember how my dad was before he got married, and I miss that side of him, but at the same time, I know he threw us to the curb for her. Sounds like OP has a direct example of both potential choices. One of OP's siblings re-established contact, one didn't. OP needs to ask herself, who does he agree with more, deep down? Can he put himself in their prospective places mentally as he observes how things are going with them? Me personally, I don't think that I would be able to forgive someone if I was holding that much, justifiable, anger and hurt in my heart. If OP wants to wait a while and see how his relationship with Trish develops, that would be just fine. I'd at least wait and see just how hard he's willing to work at making amends. But OP doesn't need to forget. If Susan hadn't died, he wouldn't be in contact with any of his children. I would be more willing to forgive a man that came to me with genuine regret and remorse over one that's only apologizing because his circumstances have changed. Update. 2 days after I made this thread, my sister's oldest kid decided that he wanted to surf down a hill on his sled when his mom was busy with his brother. Something only a 10-year-old would think is smart. He ended up breaking his wrist and his leg badly enough that he needed multiple operations. He is doing better now, but Trish is exhausted taking care of him, and on top of it, she's pregnant with her third kid. This has left our dad at the bottom of her concerns, and he has not taken it well. When I spoke with her, she said that he was driving her crazy and kept trying to guilt trip her, saying, "You can't find the time for a widowed old man," and basically being a huge pain in the butt. My brother said that he pretty much accepted that our dad would act like that when he wasn't the center of attention. I guess being the youngest, I was shielded from his behavior even before he met Susan. Ron said that our dad would call him a F multiple times as a kid, and that when he did come out to the family, Dad just told him to shut up. I should also mention that even though he struggled a bit after college, Ron ended up getting a pretty decent job with a high salary. After Susan and our dad found out, they tried to bill him for the few weeks he lived with them and even threatened to call the cops. He ended up giving them a couple thousand to get them off his back and went full-blown no contact. There were also more incidents I mentioned in the last thread. He offered to watch his brother's kid after his own wife died, but backed out at the last second. That brother now refuses to have any contact with him as well. And I also found out that the only reason he agreed to co-parent with our mom was because she told him that if he didn't spend time with us, she would go after him for more child support. I was beyond disgusted. After talking with my girlfriend and she read some of the replies in the thread, she suggested that maybe him and I should go out for lunch and just see how it goes. Since we will be in town for another month before I go off grid until the fall, I agreed. I knew that I would regret it if I didn't go, and it was eating me up inside. It was the most awkward moment of my life. I met him at the diner he chose, and I was pretty shocked to see how much he changed. He gained a lot of weight since the last time I saw him, 100+ pounds, and he looks decades older than his real age. Plus, he kept making comments about the way my girlfriend's dreadlocks look, dirty, and made a rude joke about me looking like Charles Manson when I showed him our pre-engagement pics. Finally, after he was done complaining, I asked how he was doing, and he just said, "How do you think?" He just listed off how his wife was dead, his kids won't give him the time of day, he's up to his eyes in debt, and even bitched about the poor service at the diner. After lunch, he offered me a ride back to my place and offered to put my bicycle in the back of his truck, too. The only kind thing he said. I turned him down and told him to take care of himself. I just don't think I can have any sort of relationship with him after all. I talked with my girlfriend all night, and she said that maybe I turned Susan into a scapegoat for my dad's rotten behavior, and that I didn't want to accept the type of man he really was. Right now, I'm focusing on the positive things in my life. My nephew is recovering well with a third one due in the summertime. My brother is getting married this June, and my girlfriend and I are planning to get engaged shortly afterwards. My dad's rejection still hurts like hell, but I plan on working past it. So, at 30 weeks now in my pregnancy, it's obviously getting down to the final weeks before I have the baby. So, I started planning what I wanted to happen for the birth plan and after the birth. I wrote things out and sent it to my family. My sister called me and tried to tell me off because my husband would be at the birth and not my mom. According to her, if mom was at one baby's birth, she can be at another one. I told her no. This was my last baby and my husband's first. He deserved to be there regardless. She then started asking me what I would do when he wouldn't show up. I laughed and told her he would, because I would call him when it was time. My sister then started asking me about how I would let him know if I couldn't tell him, how my mom would need to be there then. I told her no again, and that some way or another, my husband would be getting notified when I was in labor. This went on for another pointless half an hour before she got angry and told me, "One husband won't show up, so this one won't either." This pissed me off. The whole reason my first husband didn't show up to youngest child's birth was because he was adamant I had cheated and the baby wasn't his, even though he was the one cheating. My husband is overjoyed with being a father soon and obviously would be at the birth. I have talked to my mom and she is fine. So I don't know where any of this is coming from. My sister has even been telling other family members, and some of them agree with her, some of them don't. The hospital I'm going to only has one person in the room at the time of birth, so clearly it would be my husband. This has honestly just started unnecessary drama for nothing. I have told her to stop, but she doesn't listen. Would it sound extreme drama queen-like if I went no contact with her until after the birth? Edit. There is no doubt my husband will be at my birth. All honesty, too, my mom is very easygoing. I don't really think she would take my sister's side and decide she needs to be at the birth instead. It doesn't matter how many family members agree with her. It doesn't matter what she thinks. It sounds like she's jealous. This is about OP and her husband and their family. It's right for OP's husband to get to see the birth of his firstborn. It's OP's choice. I'm 35 male. So about 11 years ago, my dad began to pursue his new marriage with a woman and her 2 daughters. At that time, he had already divorced our mom. Before this, he was present in my brother and sister's life, but slowly less and less so, as he was involved with his new girlfriend and later wife. My siblings already noticed this and felt like being replaced, especially my sister, as that woman has a daughter that's similar in age. The peak of this was about 10 years ago when he took his girlfriend and her kids to a 2-week luxury-long trip to Europe. He had never done this for us, his actual children. I had a serious talk with him about this and told him that he should take my brother and sister on this trip. Perhaps that it was his last chance to make it up to them for his absence. He didn't listen, and honestly, this was kind of the moment that my sister gave up. I ended up taking them to a little road trip to make sure they don't feel completely abandoned. After this, the relationship between all of us and our dad deteriorated. He was more and more absent, and my siblings just stopped caring. I continued to encourage my dad to change his ways, but he never listened. Years passed. They grew up, and the three of us are pretty close. About 6 months ago, my dad divorced her, and he came back to us, expecting that everything will be great and we'd all be thrilled. He invited the three of us to dinner and kind of played it like, it's unfortunate that we lost contact with each other. We shouldn't let that happen again. And I corrected him that we didn't lose contact. We were there all along, and it was his choice to walk away from us. He tried to talk his way out of it, but I told him that if he wants to start over, he needs to apologize to my brother and sister. They were young, they needed him, and he abandoned them. At that point, my sister told him that she likes an apology. He gave an apology and promised that things will be different. He later on told me that I was unnecessarily harsh and turned a pleasant dinner into a tense moment. I told him that I'm helping him. He can't pretend like he's been a great dad so far. He has to make up for his mistakes and work hard to rebuild these relationships, and it will take time. And honestly, he has tried to a degree. He's been more present. He calls all of us often. He was there with us when my son was born 3 months ago. But these things take time. So this month, things escalated a bit. He asked my brother to go fishing and spend some one-on-one time together, and they did. However, they had a fight. Apparently, he tried to give my brother some advice about his life choices, aka him wanting a career in arts and my dad finding it a waste of time. While they somewhat patched things up between themselves, my brother ended up being frustrated, for good reason. Dad had no right to question his passions like that. The bigger incident happened this weekend with my sister. We were all at my house. My sister is engaged and plans to have a wedding next year. Dad and her were talking about it, and Dad said he's so excited to walk her down the aisle, which my sister said something like, "Won't be you, it will be my big brother," which Dad said it's inappropriate and will be humiliating for him to be there while someone else walks his daughter down the aisle. And my sister said something like, "You don't have to come if you're embarrassed. You missed everything for 10 years. What's another night? Or another 10 years? If we were fine without you then, we'll be fine without you now," and left to the bathroom. I overheard the conversation and took my dad away and told him that he has no right to act this way and he's making things worse for himself. I told him to apologize to my sister when she comes out, but he said he won't. So I told him it's time to leave then. He said this is all my fault, that I've brainwashed them into hating him and not giving him a chance. He thinks I want to replace him and play the dad role in the family. This is despite me doing everything in my power to give him the right advice to make things right, not just now, but for all these years. I told him that we'll talk when he's cooled down, but now it's time for him to leave. He left. Honestly, I don't know what to do with him. I've gone above and beyond in trying to help him correct his mistakes, and he's noting the right things. And now he thinks I'm doing the opposite. My priority is of course my siblings, and at this time I feel like maybe it's time to just protect them from him and tell him to stay away from us. I need advice as to what I should do next. OP should continue to do exactly what he is doing. OP has done everything right. OP's father doesn't want to change and doesn't want to admit that he made any mistakes. That was his problem in the past, and it's his problem now.